Once we've chosen the proper selection and condition parameters, we now must decide whether or not we'd like to download all of the fittings on the drawing or all the fittings in our selection set at once or break them into predefined groups. Currently under selection, we've chosen to download fittings on the entire drawing. For conditions, we have selected all the different fittings by checking each library. Currently, we have not specified any specific conditions for these fittings. We're just going to download all the fittings on the drawing. However, going into the group tab, we can now decide, do we want to download them all in one large takeoff, or should we break them up into intelligent groups based on conditions we decide, so that when they get downloaded to Practicam, they're already split up into these groups. In order to do that, we must first decide how many groups we'd like to use. Currently on our drawing, we have a duct system that consists of three different colors: green, blue, and yellow. The green duct happens to be drawn with 6-inch water gauge specification. This is going to represent our high pressure group. The yellow duct was drawn with a 2-inch water gauge specification. This is going to represent our low pressure group. And the blue duct happens to be under the fabrication level order only, because this duct we're buying and we'd like to order it. So we'd like three groups: high pressure, low pressure, and order. So what we're going to do is bring our export window back up. We're underneath the group tab, and we're now going to create a group by clicking on the add icon, the green check. When we do that, Practicad is going to ask us to name a group. We're going to call this group order. We're going to hit enter. Once we've named the group, Practicad is now going to ask us, what conditions do the fittings have to meet in order to be part of the group order? So what we're going to do here is we're going to open up our condition set. And there are tutorials under the condition tabs that explain how to utilize these conditions. Here we have all the properties in the software, and the one we're going to use for the group order is going to be fabrication level. We're going to hit F. It's going to jump right over to the F parameters, and we're going to say fabrication equals, and we're going to choose order. Here you can see the three fabrication levels. So by doing this, we're now going to have a group created called order if some of the duct in our selection criteria has the fabrication level equaling order. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to hit add again, and we're going to add a second group. We're going to just call it high pressure. We'll call it HP. Here what we're going to do is say if duct, and we're going to hit the letter S for specification. It's going to bring us to our S parameters. We're going to say if specification equals 6-inch water gauge, we want it to go to the high pressure group. So we've chosen the condition specification equals 6-inch water gauge. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hit add one more time, and we're going to choose the low pressure. We're going to write low pressure, and low pressure is going to be if the specification equals, and we'll say 2-inch for this tutorial. Specification equals 2-inch, and that's going to be the duct that's going to classify the group low pressure. You will notice when you add more to this list that Practicad will open up the delete icon to delete, plus the up and down arrows. For example, we have LP lit. If we hit up, it's going to move it up in order, and down in order. Now, order of conditions is important, and under the tutorials for the Practicad layer mechanism, we show and explain why you want to order things properly. Practicad, when it goes to decide what should go in what group, is always going to start with the first choice here, see if the conditions meet the selection criteria, and if it does, it's going to put it under order. If it doesn't meet these conditions, it's going to jump to the next and say, does my specification equal 6-inch water gauge? If the answer is yes, it goes in the group high pressure. If it doesn't meet those conditions, it'll jump to the next one, and so on. Please watch the tutorials on how to design the Practicad layer mechanism and ordering. Once we've got our group set, now what we can do is press OK. When we do that, it's going to export all of our duct. But you can see before it exports it, it's sorted into a group: high pressure, order, and low pressure. And when it comes into Practicam, Practicam is going to design takeoffs and the name of these group is going to be embedded into those takeoff. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to press OK and export the duct, and now we're going to jump to Practicam and show you how it would be sorted inside Practicam. Here we're inside Practicam, and you can see that after we've downloaded the duct off our drawing, Practicad had created the name, and this is job name, Practicad training videos, the drawing name, which we called exporting automatics, and we'll show you where that is in a minute. And then it designed 3 separate takeoffs based on the group name. High pressure, and inside the high pressure, all the high pressure fittings. Low pressure, underneath low pressure, we have all the low pressure fittings. And under order, you can see that we have all the fittings that should be ordered. You'll notice that the fabrication level over here on the right happens to say order, 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 order. So groups will automatically download from Practicad to Practicam, and they'll be designed into separate takeoffs. This will make it easier for nesting, sorting, and inputting. Jumping back to Practicad, you can see up here that we had named the job Practicad Training Videos. We had named the drawing Exporting Automatics. So Practicad used these names to create those folders, and then it used the group names to create the names of the takeoffs in Practicam. Once we've chosen the proper names and the proper conditions to meet these groups, we can now choose between 3 current choices for each group. For each group we have created, we can choose between no limit, limit by quantity, or limit by entries. Currently, no limit means that if we download this job, there is no limit to the number of fittings that can be placed into a particular group. For example, for the HP group, we have specification equals 6-inch water gauge. That's the condition. If there's 10,000 fittings on the drawing that meet that condition, when we download this to Practicam, there'll be 10,000 fittings in that takeoff. Now, many users feel that they don't want to nest that many fittings together. So they like to use the options for limit by quantity and limit by entries to reduce that and divide sub-takeoffs or subgroups. Currently, let's see what happens if we run no limit for the HP group. We're going to press OK. Practicad's opening up the export window to show us what fittings are going to be exported. And here under group HP, you can see that it's been called HP_2. And you can see if you add these numbers up that we currently have 10 fittings that are being downloaded. Each fitting is counted as quantity 1. So if you take your time and add up these numbers, you'll see that currently there is 10 fittings on this drawing that are going to be downloaded. Even though for the rectangular, there are 3 pieces that are identical, they're listed as quantity 3. Here we have spiral duct, there are 2 pieces that are identical. So they're listed in one row, but it's under quantity 2. And then we have 1 for 5 more different fittings. So the total is 10. So if we have no limit, we can put as many fittings inside this particular group as we'd like. The limit by quantity option allows us to limit the number of fittings that get placed into a specific group by quantity. For example, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the high pressure group we have here. And instead of no limit, we're going to choose limit by quantity, and we're going to say 5. Now, Practicad defines the quantity of a fitting by the entity itself. In other words, if we have 3 pieces of duct that are identical in parameters, quantity is 3. That would be the total quantity. So if we say limit by quantity 5, that means we cannot have more than 5 pieces of duct underneath the group HP. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say limit by quantity 5. We're going to press OK. Practicad's going to open up the export field. And what we're going to do is take a look at what we have here. Notice that we've now got 2 groups for HP. The first group, if you take a look over here in the file path, is HP_2. And inside you can see that we have 3 pieces of identical rect duct and 2 pieces of identical spiral. So they're in the exact same row. They're not separated. That is a total of 5 fittings because the total quantity is 5. That was the limit by quantity. Therefore, Practicat has created another group HP. You can see in the file path it's HP underscore 3. And here you can see the remaining 5 fittings are there. Therefore, we set limit by quantity, and that simply means we cannot have more than 5 fittings. Regardless of them being identical, 5 fittings is the maximum. So when we download the Practicam now, we will have a takeoff called HP underscore 2 and HP underscore 3. The limit by entries field is a different way of limiting the number of fittings we get in a takeoff. What Practicat defines an entry is a particular item. It is not based on the quantity of items. For example, if we have 2 pieces of identical spiral duct, we have quantity 2, but we have entries 1. If we have 10 pieces of rectangular duct that are identical in all of their parameters, and we have 10 pieces of spiral duct that are identical in all of their parameters, our total quantity is 20, but our total entries is 2. It basically accounts for identical items as one entry. So in this particular case, we're going to go to the high pressure group, and we're going to, instead of having limit by quantity 5 as you see here, we're going to go to limit by entries, and we're going to say 5. And that means that the maximum amount of entries we can have in one group is 5. And now what we're going to do is we're going to run an export automatic by pressing OK. And here you can see that Practicat has once again created 2 groups of HP. However, the first group, which is named HP underscore 2, notice that we have 5 entries. And each row is an entry. You can see if you add up the quantity, we actually have quantity 8 inside this particular takeoff. However, because the rect duct, these 3 pieces marked as quantity 3 are identical, Practicat counts that as one entry. So we have one entry of 3 pieces here. We have one entry of 2 pieces, so we have 2 identical pieces of spiral duct. And then we have 3 entries of obviously unique pieces. So this particular group or takeoff has a limit by entries 5. However, the quantity inside the group happens to be 8 in this group. If we come over to the other HP, which is marked in the file as HP underscore 3, you can see here that we've got 2 entries and also the quantity is 2 because there's no duplicates. So limit by entries means basically we're only going to have 5 line items, but Practicat's going to count identical items all as one entry. The last portion of the group tab for export automatics is to take a look at the sample field. Now this field will always be grayed out when you are on the group tab. However, when we get to the takeoff tab, we're going to show you how to define where this group is going. But the sample field will be displaying for you inside the group tab exactly what folder this particular group is going to be saved under. So at all times you can see the file path that a specific group is going to go by looking at the sample field. Once again, in the takeoff tab, we're going to go over how to define this field.